In a kingdom where a woman's worth is measured by the heirs she bears, Princess Selene of Elarion carries a secret no crown can hide, a curse etched in her very blood. For years, she has bowed to shame, silenced by prophecy, and scorned by her own throne. But on the night she's declared barren before the realm, fate itself intervenes, in the form of a wounded stranger who bleeds light instead of blood, and when his touch ignites the mark she was born to hide. Selene realizes her curse was never hers at all. Now begins the tale of a fallen princess, a forgotten god, and a destiny written in divine fire. Hello, Moonlight family. Welcome back to Moonlight Romance Stories. If you're new here, don't forget to like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more epic stories filled with betrayal, power, and transformation. And to all my loyal viewers, thank you for always lighting up the Moonlight world with your support. The great hall of Elarion pulsed with tension. Courtiers bowed low, their whispers sharp as knives. Princess Selene stood before the royal oracle, her trembling hands hidden within folds of silver silk. The air smelled of incense and betrayal. When the oracle's voice rose, it carried the weight of doom. The womb of the heir is sealed. The bloodline ends with her. The words fell like stones. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Barren, unfit, a curse upon the throne. Even her father, King Aldred, refused to meet her gaze. He dismissed her coldly, his crown gleaming harder than his heart. That night, the announcement spread across the kingdom. A new heir would be chosen. Selene fled the palace under moonlight, her bare feet silent on the frost-kissed ground. Shame and rage tangled in her chest. She wandered into the ancient forest, where the trees whispered like spirits of the forgotten. If the gods cursed me, she whispered, then let them see me defy them. Lightning cracked across the sky. In its flash, she saw him. A figure collapsed near the sacred spring, wrapped in torn robes that shimmered faintly with light. His blood glowed like molten silver. Against her fear, Selene knelt beside him. "Who are you?" she breathed. His eyes opened, not human, but endless, reflecting stars she'd never seen. "I am no one the living should remember." He tried to rise, faltered. Instinct overcame reason. Selene reached for him. The moment her hand touched his chest, pain seared her palm. The dormant mark of barrenness on her skin ignited in blue fire. Her vision blurred. The forest fell away, replaced by flashes of ancient temples, screaming gods, and a woman who looked exactly like her, standing amid divine ruins. "Stop," she gasped, tearing her hand back. "What are you doing to me?" The stranger's breathing steadied, his wounds already closing as light pulsed from within him. He caught her gaze with unsettling calm. "I did nothing," he said softly, almost tenderly. "The curse recognized me, because it was never yours to bear." Before she could speak, a gust of wind swept through the forest, carrying voices that hissed her name. Palace guards, hunters of the king. The stranger vanished into radiant mist, leaving her alone with the echo of his words and a burning sigil glowing on her wrist. She looked up at the moon, once cold and distant, now pulsing with faint light, as though it too had awakened. From the shadows, unseen eyes watched her flee. A whisper drifted through the night. "The heir has been found. The gods will not stay silent." The forest still trembled from the storm. Selene pressed her hand against the tree, heart pounding as torches flickered in the distance. The guards were close, their voices sharp, their dogs snarling. She looked down at her wrist, where the faintly glowing sigil pulsed beneath her skin like a heartbeat not her own. Then, a breath of wind. The wounded stranger reappeared before her, no longer bleeding, his torn robes shimmering with threads of light. The forest bent around him as though bowing to something greater. "You shouldn't be here," Selene whispered. "The king's men." He raised a hand, and the night itself fell silent. "They cannot find you now," he said. His voice carried the weight of centuries, calm yet commanding. "Your name is not Selene. It was never Selene." Her breath caught. "What did you just say?" He stepped closer, eyes burning like molten gold. "You are Seraphiel's chosen, the last daughter of the covenant your ancestors broke. The curse they called barrenness was the seal that hid your power." The words struck her harder than any blow. Her thoughts scattered. Chosen? Covenant? Power? She wanted to deny him, to laugh, to run. But the sigil on her wrist blazed brighter, answering his words like truth remembered. "What do you mean?" she whispered, trembling. "What are you saying I am?" He looked at her with sorrow that felt older than time itself. "You are the key that binds two realms, Selene, and they've lied to you since the day you were born." Before she could question him further, the sound of horns pierced the night. The king's riders were breaking through the tree line. The healer's eyes dimmed. "They must not see me. Not yet." "Wait!" she cried, stepping forward. "Who are you?" For a heartbeat, his hand brushed her cheek, warm, divine, and unbearably human. "A memory," he whispered, "and a promise you once made." The air around him shimmered. Light consumed his form until nothing remained but mist and silence. In his place, the sigil on her wrist flared with blinding intensity, projecting a symbol of intertwined wings and flame. The guards burst into the clearing seconds later, blades drawn. Selene stumbled back, hiding her wrist beneath her cloak. "The intruder. He's gone," she stammered. "He vanished." They searched the forest in vain, finding only ash that shimmered like starlight. By dawn, Selene was back within the cold stone walls of the palace, her father's words echoing from the throne room. "A barren heir cannot lead Elarion." Yet even as she knelt before him, a strange warmth coiled beneath her skin, pulsing in defiance. That night, when the royal priests gathered for morning prayers, a gasp rippled through the chapel. Above the king's throne, carved deep into gold, burned the same glowing sigil, the mark of wings and fire. The oracle fell to his knees, trembling. "Your Majesty, that is the mark of Seraphiel, the god your bloodline betrayed." The royal chapel remained cloaked in silence long after the oracle's trembling voice faded. The glowing sigil above the king's throne pulsed faintly, casting divine light across the marble floor. The courtiers whispered of omens and wrath, but King Aldred's expression never shifted. Only his clenched jaw betrayed the storm behind his crown. Selene stood among them, her gaze locked on the mark. It was identical to the one seared into her skin. Every instinct told her to hide it, yet it burned brighter with every heartbeat, as though responding to the symbol on the wall. The king turned toward her slowly, his eyes unreadable. "Leave us," he ordered the court. When the doors closed, his voice dropped into a growl. "What have you done, Selene?" "I've done nothing," she replied, trembling but defiant. "That mark appeared after I saw the oracle's words burn into truth. It's not of me." The king's face hardened. "You bring ruin to my reign with your defiance. Stay confined to your chambers until I decide your fate." That night, unable to rest, Selene slipped from her room. Guided by a force she didn't understand, she followed the moonlight down to the Hall of Records, a vast chamber beneath the palace where only the ancient archivist, a blind sage named Barren, kept watch. His robes smelled of dust and ink, his sightless eyes glowing faintly in the candlelight. "You shouldn't be here, princess," he murmured as she entered. The walls listened. "I need answers," Selene said. "The mark, the god they call Seraphiel. What does it mean?" Barren hesitated, then drew a trembling breath. "Your bloodline once swore fealty to Seraphiel, god of light and balance. But when he demanded they uphold the sacred order, your ancestor chose power instead. He broke the covenant and sealed Seraphiel's spirit beneath the throne itself." Selene's voice faltered. "Then the curse was the price of betrayal," Barren finished. "The goddess bound your blood with divine sterility, so no heir of treachery could inherit the god's strength. You are the firstborn who bears both the mark of punishment and the spark of redemption." Her hands shook. Redemption or destruction? The old man's expression turned grave. That depends on which side of the divine you awaken. Before Selene could speak again, the candles flickered out. The air grew heavy, and when the light returned, the archivist was gone. Only his cane lay where he had stood, and the shelves around her were burning with invisible fire, letters rearranging themselves into a single message etched in gold. The throne hides what the blood remembers. Footsteps thundered down the corridor, palace guards shouting her name. Selene clutched her cloak and fled, her heart hammering. By the time she reached the courtyard, a royal herald's voice rang out across the city square. "Hear the decree of King Aldred of Elarion." Selene froze, hidden among the shadows. For the crime of practicing forbidden magic and invoking the mark of the fallen god, Princess Selene is hereby sentenced to death. By dawn. Lightning split the sky as the sigil on her wrist flared violently, and from deep beneath the palace something ancient stirred in answer. Lightning split the skies above Elarion as the royal decree echoed through every street, every tower, every heart that had once bowed to Princess Selene. By dawn, the Barren heir dies. The words chased her through the corridors like ghosts. Her breath came ragged. Her gown was torn, soaked by the rain that lashed against the stained glass windows. From behind a pillar, a hand grabbed her wrist. She almost screamed until she saw Kyle, her most trusted guard, his armor smeared with mud and blood. "Your Highness," he whispered, eyes fierce beneath his helm. "They've sealed every gate. We must move now." Selene stared at him, voice shaking. "You know what they'll call you if you help me." Kyle smirked faintly. "A traitor to a traitor. I've heard worse." He pressed a dagger into her hand, the one she'd gifted him years ago. "Follow me." They slipped through secret corridors known only to the royal sentinels, the same paths her ancestors had used to smuggle stolen relics from the divine temples. Guards' shouts echoed behind them as lightning flashed again, painting the marble halls in shades of blue and silver. Each thunderclap seemed closer than the last. At the stables, Kale pulled her onto a black stallion, cutting the reins free. "Ride to the forest," he commanded. "Find the old shrine by the eastern ridge. I'll hold them off." "No," Selene protested, rain streaking her face. "You won't survive." He met her eyes, steady and calm. "Neither will you if you stay." He struck the horse's flank. "Go." The stallion bolted into the storm, hooves pounding the soaked earth. Behind her, steel clashed, and Kale's war cry cut through the night. The wind tore at her hair, tears mixed with rain. The sigil on her wrist glowed brighter, guiding her through the darkness. When she reached the edge of the ancient forest, her horse reared, and there he was again. The divine healer standing unscathed amid the tempest, his robes glowing with ethereal fire. "You shouldn't have come," Selene gasped. "They'll kill you too." He stepped forward, eyes glowing faintly gold. "I told you, they cannot touch me." Behind her, dozens of riders emerged from the fog, their torches forming a ring of light. Arrows hissed through the rain. Selene raised her arm instinctively, and the sigil blazed, deflecting the first arrow midair. The healer lifted his hand. "Enough." The world erupted in silence. The storm froze mid-motion. Raindrops hung suspended in the air like shards of glass. The flames of the torches stilled. Even the thunder stopped its growl. Selene's breath trembled in her throat. What have you done?" He looked at her, voice soft, yet infinite. "I bent time, and only for a moment. There's something you must see." The rain around them shimmered, transforming into light. The trees melted away, replaced by a celestial landscape, endless sky and glowing sand beneath her feet. A figure appeared within the light, tall, veiled, radiant beyond mortal comprehension. Selene fell to her knees, the air thick with divine power. The healer bowed his head. "Do you know who stands before you?" he asked. The voice that answered was both thunder and whisper. "I am Lunara, the goddess your bloodline betrayed, and you, child of broken vows, carry the debt they never paid." The goddess extended a hand toward Selene, and the sigil on her wrist flared into a burning chain that pulled her to her knees. "The blood remembers," Lunara said, "and soon it will awaken." Selene gasped as divine light seared her vision. The burning chain around her wrist drew her closer to the towering figure before her. The goddess Lunara stood radiant, her veil made of moonlight, her eyes galaxies in motion. Every heartbeat Selene felt wasn't her own, but echoed from the goddess's voice vibrating through the stillness of time. "You bear the mark of betrayal," Lunara said, her tone neither cruel nor kind. "Your blood once walked with the divine, and severed the bond for power. But the threads cannot stay broken forever." Selene trembled. "Why curse me for sins I never committed? I've done nothing but bleed for this kingdom." The goddess stepped closer, her voice a low echo of eternity. "Curses are not punishments, child. They are locks, and every lock has a key." The sigil on Selene's wrist blazed, spreading across her arm in patterns of light. "Then tell me," she begged. "How do I end it?" Lunara's gaze shifted to the silent healer standing beside her. The balance must be restored through union, not by love alone, but by merging what was torn apart. The divine heir of Seraphiel must join with the mortal blood that once betrayed him. Only then can the curse dissolve. Selene turned to the healer, her mind spinning. His golden eyes, his aura, the way the mark answered his presence. The truth struck her like thunder. You're not just a healer. You're Seraphiel himself." The goddess's veil rippled as if in agreement. "He was broken, scattered among mortals, but his essence endures. Together, you carry the pieces of what was divine." The healer's expression darkened with pain. "I do not remember that life," he whispered. "You will," Lunara said. "When the moon bleeds again, the final test will begin." Her voice softened. "Be careful, daughter of Elarion. Love has saved and doomed gods alike." The light began to fade, and with it the goddess's form. The celestial sands dissolved into mist. Selene felt herself falling, her heart pounding as the still world of suspended rain returned, time rushing back all at once. She awoke in the forest, drenched and gasping. The healer knelt beside her, concern etched across his face. "You fainted," he said gently. Selene sat up, clutching her wrist, the sigil now etched deeper, pulsing with divine rhythm. You saw her too, didn't you? The goddess. She said the curse can only break if we unite. You're Seraphiel reborn." His expression changed, not confusion but sorrow. "No," he said softly. "You've misunderstood." She blinked, startled. "What?" He stood, his form flickering briefly with light that twisted the air. "I am not Seraphiel," he whispered. "You are." The forest fell silent. The rain stopped midair for a single heartbeat before crashing down again. Selene's voice broke. "That's impossible." He met her gaze, eyes no longer gold but deep silver, reflecting the moon itself. "The goddess didn't summon me to heal you," he said. "She sent me to awaken you." As thunder rolled across the heavens, the sigil on Selene's wrist split into two intertwined symbols, one radiant gold, one silver, and both began to pulse in perfect harmony. The twin sigils on Selene's wrist pulsed violently, gold and silver intertwining like warring suns. The forest around them trembled, leaves lifting into the air as though gravity itself forgot its duty. The healer's words still echoed in her ears. "You are Seraphiel." Selene shook her head, backing away. "No, that's impossible. I'm no god. I'm cursed, humiliated, hunted by my own blood." The healer's expression was sorrowful, yet unyielding. "You carry his light, Selene. The curse was only a cage to hide it. But if your power awakens without balance, the realms will collapse. Before she could answer, the sigils flared. A surge of light shot from her palm, striking the earth between them. The ground split open, a wound of raw energy spiraling upward, clawing at the sky. The storm scattered as darkness poured through the rift, shadows shaped like faces, whispering in tongues no mortal could speak. Selene staggered back, terrified. What's happening to me? The lock is breaking, the healer said, stepping forward. But you're fighting me instead of accepting who you are. She raised her hands defensively. You said I was divine, why can't I control it? He reached out, trying to touch her, but her body erupted with white flame, pure, celestial energy. The force threw him back against a shattered tree. Because, he coughed, blood glinting silver under the moonlight. Part of you still remembers what you did. His words tore through her confusion. Flashes of another world pierced her vision. A golden temple crumbling beneath her feet, the sky aflame with divine fire. A man, radiant, familiar, reached for her hand as armies of mortals screamed below. Selene, don't do this. Her own voice, ancient and trembling, answered from the memory. I must. If I seal your light, humanity survives. The vision shattered. She gasped, collapsing to her knees. I betrayed you, she whispered, eyes wide with horror. I sealed Seraphiel, to save them. The healer rose, pain etched into his glowing face. And I was the one you sealed. The rift widened behind them, sucking in fragments of the forest, howling winds devouring everything. Stars twisted above as the veil between realms thinned to breaking. Selene reached toward him, desperation and guilt tangling in her voice. Then help me fix it. Please. He nodded weakly and stepped forward, golden energy flaring from his palms. Together then. Their hands met, silver and gold light spiraling upward, weaving into a barrier of divine fire. The rift screamed as it began to close, consuming the dark entities clawing at its edge. The strain ripped through both of them. Their veins glowed like molten metal, their hearts pulsing in painful rhythm. Hold on, she cried. You're burning yourself out. He smiled faintly, even as cracks of light spread across his skin. Someone has to finish what you started. The final surge came like the end of creation. The rift sealed with a thunderous silence. The air stilled. The forest was gone. Only scorched earth and moonlight remained. Selene looked around, disoriented, her vision blurred by smoke and tears. It's over? She whispered. No answer. The healer lay motionless at her feet, his body still glowing faintly gold. She dropped beside him, shaking. No, you can't. Her fingers pressed against his chest. No heartbeat, only the soft hum of fading divinity. Tears spilled down her face as the light in his body dimmed. Don't leave me again, she whispered, voice breaking. Not after I finally remembered. The final flicker of his light slipped into her hand, a golden spark sinking into her skin, as a cold wind whispered through the ruins. One life for another, Seraphiel. The balance has only begun. The golden spark sank deep into Selene's skin, searing her palm with unbearable heat. She screamed as her veins blazed with light, spreading through her body like molten fire. The forest, or what was left of it, seemed to bow to her agony. Moonlight bent around her form, rippling as if afraid. She pressed her trembling hands over the healer's heart. You gave your light to save me, she whispered through tears. Now I give mine to bring you back. The words became a vow, an ancient invocation older than language. The sigil on her wrist expanded, burning into her flesh in a halo of silver and gold. Her life essence, her very breath, poured into him. Her heartbeat slowed as his quickened. A storm of divine energy erupted around them, tearing the air with celestial thunder. Live, she gasped. Please, live. The light blinded her. When it faded, her body collapsed beside him, weak and cold. For a moment there was only silence. Then a soft inhale broke through. The healer stirred. His once serene aura now burned fierce and wild. His eyes snapped open, no longer golden but a blazing fusion of white fire and shadow. "Selene?" His voice was deeper, resonant, layered with 1,000 echoes. She smiled faintly, her strength nearly gone. "You're alive." But the look in his eyes wasn't relief. It was fury. He rose slowly, power rippling from him like a storm barely leashed. The ground cracked beneath his feet and the trees surrounding them bowed as if recognizing a god's wrath. "What have you done?" he thundered. "I gave you life," she whispered. "I couldn't let you die again." He clenched his fists, divine fire licking across his arms. "You gave me corruption." His gaze pinned her, fierce, accusing, divine. "You touched the forbidden balance. You shouldn't have been able to do that, unless—" Selene's eyes widened. "Unless what?" "Unless you were the curse itself," he said, his voice trembling with rage and revelation. "Not the victim, Selene. The origin. The goddess didn't punish you. She sealed you." Her breath caught. "That's not true." "Then explain why your soul could command creation and death in one breath." He raised his hand, light gathering in his palm. "Explain why your essence burns brighter than mine." The air between them crackled, humming with unbearable tension. Selene tried to rise, but her body felt heavy, half of her life drained away. "I didn't mean for this," she said softly. "I only wanted to save you." He stepped closer, face torn between rage and sorrow. "You don't understand what you've awakened. The curse wasn't on your bloodline. It was you. You were the chain that bound Seraphiel and the cage that imprisoned the heavens." Her heart pounded. "No." "Yes," he whispered darkly. "And now the chain is broken." A sudden gust swept through the clearing, carrying a haunting whisper. 1,000 ghostly voices rising from the earth. The mark on her wrist glowed again, brighter than before, pulsing like a second heartbeat. The moon turned red above them. Selene backed away, tears glistening. "If what you say is true, then help me end it." But the healer, or what he had become, only looked at her with divine fury. "You cannot end what you are," he said. "You can only unleash it." The wind howled, divine fire crackling around him as the ground trembled once more. His final words echoed through the air. "Selene, Seraphiel never cursed your blood. He cursed you. You are the beginning and the end of all this." The heavens trembled with his words. Lightning split the red moon as if even the sky feared the truth. Selene staggered backward, her heart hammering in her chest. "Cursed by Seraphiel?" she whispered. The healer's, no, Seraphiel's, eyes burned like molten suns. His aura tore through the clearing, bending wind and shadow alike. "Do you feel it now?" he thundered, stepping toward her. "Every breath you take bends the laws of creation. You are what chained me, Selene, what silenced the gods." "I didn't choose this," she cried. "I didn't even know." "Your ignorance doesn't absolve you." His voice echoed like a storm inside her skull. "Your power has awakened again. And now, so have those who would destroy you." As if summoned by his words, a deafening horn blared in the distance. From beyond the ridge, lights pierced the forest, torches of the royal army. And above them, descending on wings of light, came the celestial sentinels, beings of pure radiance, their spears shimmering like starlight. Selene's breath caught. "They're after me?" "No," Seraphiel said, his voice colder now. "They're after us." The forest erupted in chaos. Arrows of flame and bolts of divine energy rained down. Seraphiel raised his hand. Time itself seemed to fracture. Trees twisted, arrows froze mid-air, and the sentinel's glow flickered. But the strain on him was visible. Cracks of golden light split across his skin. "You're burning yourself out," Selene shouted. He ignored her, eyes locked on the enemies closing in. Better to burn than to bow. She felt it then, the surge of her own power responding, wild and uncontrolled. The sigil on her wrist flared, casting waves of silver light that pushed back both mortal and divine attackers. The forest quaked as her energy collided with his, their powers clashing and spiraling into an unstable storm. "Stop," she screamed. "You'll destroy everything." He turned to her, rage and sorrow mingling in his gaze. "Then let it all burn, Selene. Let the world remember what it means to defy the divine." Desperate, Selene reached for him. Her body trembled from the power coursing through her veins. "Seraphil, please," she whispered. "If I am the curse, then let me bear it, not the world." For the first time, he hesitated. The fury in his eyes wavered. Without thinking, Selene stepped closer and pressed her lips to his. The moment they touched, the storm shattered. Light exploded around them, swallowing everything in a blinding flash. The sentinels froze mid-flight. The soldiers fell to their knees and time itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, visions flooded her mind. She saw the throne room bathed in moonlight. Her father, the king, kneeling before the same goddess who had cursed their line. His voice trembled as he spoke. "Spare my kingdom, O divine one. Take my daughter instead. Let her bear the seal of your wrath, that I may keep my crown." Selene gasped, breaking the kiss. Her body trembled as the vision faded, leaving only horror. "No," she whispered. "He knew. He offered me to her." Seraphil's expression darkened, the glow in his eyes dimming to sorrowful embers. "So it wasn't you who betrayed me," he murmured. "It was him." Selene's knees gave way. The weight of revelation crushed her spirit. Her entire life, her curse, her pain, all bought by her father's greed. But before she could speak, a shadow fell across them. The air rippled with divine distortion, and a voice colder than moonlight echoed through the silence. "Then it seems," the voice said, "the bargain must now be fulfilled. The goddess herself descends into the mortal realm, and the sigil on Selene's wrist flares, matching the one glowing on the king's throne." The heavens cracked open as the goddess descended, her form woven from starlight and shadow. Every leaf, every breath of wind bent toward her. Selene shielded her eyes, heart pounding as divine radiance scorched the ground. But before the goddess could speak, the healer seized Selene's arm and tore reality apart. Light and darkness folded around them, and in the next instant, they were gone. They reappeared miles away, deep within the ruins that bordered the capital of Elarion. The stars above had dimmed, the air thick with smoke and guilt. Selene's body trembled. The sigil on her wrist pulsed violently, still echoing with the goddess's power. Seraphil stood beside her, his expression unreadable, too calm for what they had just escaped. "She's coming for us," Selene whispered. "She's already here," he replied. "Everywhere her name is spoken, her gaze follows." But Selene's thoughts were elsewhere, on her father's betrayal. The image of him kneeling before the goddess, trading her soul for his crown, would not leave her mind. Fury burned through her exhaustion. "He sold me," she murmured, eyes hardening. "He cursed me to save himself." Seraphil met her gaze. "Then you know what must be done." That night, Selene wrapped herself in the cloak of a commoner and slipped into the city with Kale's help. Elarion had changed. Banners of the goddess hung over the walls, her temples overflowing with offerings. Soldiers patrolled every street, and on the royal balcony, the king stood tall beneath a halo of false light, addressing his people as if divinity favored him. Her hands curled into fists. "He dares stand beneath her sigil," she whispered. "He dares pretend to be blessed." In the shadows, a familiar figure approached, her mother, the queen. Dressed in mourning black, her once radiant face was pale and lined with sorrow. "Selene," she whispered, pulling her into a hidden chamber. I feared you were lost." Selene's anger softened. "Mother, I need the truth." Tears glimmered in the queen's eyes. "Then hear it. The night the goddess cursed our line, I tried to destroy her temple. I thought, if her altar fell, her curse would fade." She trembled, voice breaking. "But your father made a pact behind my back. He gave her your name before you were even born." Selene's heart shattered. "He condemned me before my first breath." The queen nodded, reaching for her daughter's hand, but her fingers froze mid-air. A soft gasp escaped her lips. Her eyes widened, then clouded. "Mother?" Selene caught her as she fell. The queen's skin turned pale, her veins darkening. Foam gathered at her lips. "Poison," she croaked. "They knew." "No," Selene cried, shaking her gently. "Stay with me." The queen's gaze flickered to the doorway, and Selene followed it just in time to see guards rushing in. "Your Majesty," one shouted, "the queen has been poisoned." And behind them stood Seraphiel. His aura glimmered faintly, divine light still clinging to him from their escape. The sight of him drew gasps and suspicion. "It's him," a captain shouted. "The outsider with forbidden power. He killed the queen." Selene's world tilted. "No! He saved me!" But her cries were drowned in chaos. Swords were drawn, bells tolled across the palace, and the call for divine justice rang out through Elarion. Seraphiel's expression was unreadable as the soldiers surrounded him. His gaze met hers, calm and resigned. "There is always a price for truth," he said softly. Before she could reach him, a blast of divine energy knocked her backward. The guards seized him, binding his hands in chains forged with moonlight sigils, the same symbol that marked her wrist. Selene screamed his name as they dragged him away. As the queen's lifeless hand slipped from Selene's grasp, the dying woman's ring flared with silver light, revealing an engraved name inside: Seraphiel. The queen's ring still glowed in Selene's trembling palm as the palace erupted in chaos. Her cries echoed through the marble halls, drowned by the shouts of soldiers and priests proclaiming the divine healer a murderer. She ran after them, barefoot, her cloak torn and blood-stained. The corridors blurred, her vision streaked with tears. "Let him go," she screamed. "He's innocent." But the guards ignored her pleas. The sacred chains binding Seraphiel shimmered with celestial fire, burning into his flesh as they dragged him toward the temple at the heart of the capital, a place where mortals and gods were judged alike. That night, the heavens split open above Elarion. The Celestial Council had been summoned, an ancient assembly of divine arbiters who ruled over the balance between realms. Their arrival turned the night sky into a storm of light. Every tower in the city bowed under the weight of their presence. Selene could have fled. She could have hidden in the ruins and waited for the chaos to fade. But instead, she stepped forward, through the palace gates, through her people's hateful stares, through the soldiers' raised spears, and surrendered herself. "If he stands trial," she declared, her voice shaking yet unyielding, "then so do I." The crowd gasped. Her father, the king, descended from his throne, his face pale and furious. "You dare defy divine law?" Selene met his gaze, fire in her eyes. "You broke it long before I did." He turned away, unable to face her. Moments later, she and Seraphiel were brought before the council. 12 celestial beings, robed in living constellations, floated above a pool of starlight. Their eyes saw through skin and soul alike. Around them, divine runes pulsed with power. "The mortal heir and the fallen light," the high arbiter intoned, "accused of defiling the sacred balance, of reviving forbidden power, and of bringing chaos upon the realms. How do you plead?" Selene took a step forward. "We plead for truth." A murmur rippled through the assembly. The high arbiter's eyes narrowed. "Truth is not mercy." Seraphiel, his body weakened by the celestial chains, lifted his head. "You call this justice? You serve the same goddess who condemned her as a child. You call her cursed, yet she carries your own light within her. That statement sent a shiver through the hall. The council's luminous forms flickered, just slightly. The High Arbiter raised his hand, silencing all. Enough. The heavens care not for your quarrels. The law will decide. But as his staff struck the ground, the starlit pool beneath them rippled, and then flared. The sigil on Selene's wrist burned hotter than ever before, and pain ripped through her abdomen. She gasped, clutching her stomach. Seraphiel's eyes widened. Selene. The air thickened with divine energy. A radiant pulse erupted from within her, filling the chamber with golden fire. The counselors recoiled, their celestial composure faltering. What is this? One demanded. No mortal could. The High Arbiter's gaze sharpened. Silence. He looked down upon her, voice trembling with a mix of awe and fear. The Barren heir is with child. A collective gasp filled the chamber. Selene's breath came in ragged bursts. She didn't understand. Her body had been cursed for years, her womb declared lifeless by the oracle. But now, the mark on her wrist glowed in rhythm with her heartbeat, and another smaller pulse beneath it. The council murmured among themselves, their voices echoing like thunder. An abomination, a vessel of forbidden power. Selene's father stepped forward, horror on his face. This is not possible. She was barren. The High Arbiter turned toward the throne. Then it is not a child of men, it is a divine fusion, the union of curse and light, a threat to both realms. Selene clutched Seraphiel's hand, her voice breaking. No, it's life. It's hope. But the council had already decided. The unborn shall be purged, the High Arbiter declared coldly. For if born, it will unmake creation itself. The floor split open, the pool of stars turning crimson beneath them. Guards advanced, celestial weapons drawn. Selene's scream echoed through the hall, not from fear, but from the realization that fate had come full circle. As the council prepares to strike, the unborn child's energy surges, and the heavens above begin to bleed. The heavens bled crimson as chaos erupted within the celestial hall. The starlit floor trembled, cracks of molten light racing outward, as if the universe itself recoiled from what was growing inside Selene. Her scream echoed across the divine chamber, mixing with the panicked voices of the council and the roar of collapsing light. Seraphiel broke free of his bindings, wings of fractured radiance bursting from his back. The chains of judgment turned to dust around him as he swept Selene into his arms, shielding her from the shockwaves. Hold on, he whispered. Don't let them take you. The counselors shouted spells of containment, but their divine light faltered. The pulse from Selene's womb intensified, rhythmic, pure, impossibly ancient. The energy wasn't destructive. It was balancing, bending divine chaos into harmony. The High Arbiter's voice cracked through the noise. Contain her. The vessel is destabilizing the realms. Seraphiel's wings flared, scattering the sentinels. You fools, he thundered. Can't you feel it? It's not destruction. It's restoration. They vanished in a beam of white fire, leaving the collapsing council behind. When the blinding light faded, Selene and Seraphiel found themselves on the cliffs outside Elarion, overlooking a sea that shimmered like liquid moonlight. The air was still, heavy with power and fear. Selene knelt, her hands trembling over her abdomen. I can feel it, the heartbeat. It's not mortal, but it's not divine either. Tears welled in her eyes. It's something in between. Seraphiel rested his hand over hers, his touch soft, reverent. The child. It's the balance, he said, born of curse and grace. What the heavens call a threat may be what saves us all. Before she could reply, the air around them rippled and froze. The waves stilled. The wind vanished. A silver glow rose from the sea, coalescing into the form of the goddess. Her eyes shone like twin moons, her voice both lullaby and thunder. So it is true, she murmured. The forbidden union bears fruit. Selene rose shakily, fury burning through her fear. You cursed me. You turned my life into torment, and now you call this child forbidden? The goddess tilted her head, her expression unreadable. The curse was mercy. The seed within you breaks what was never meant to be joined. Seraphiel stepped forward, his aura clashing against hers. You speak of balance while fearing it. You call her unworthy, yet she carries the harmony you lost. The goddess regarded him for a long, cold moment. Then her gaze turned back to Selene. You wish to save your child? Then hear my offer. The air thickened. Even the stars seemed to hold their breath. Sacrifice him, the goddess said softly, her tone cutting deeper than any blade. Give up the fallen light, the one who defied heaven, and your child will live. Defy me, and both will perish before the dawn. Selene's breath caught. Her knees weakened. You ask me to kill him? Not kill, the goddess whispered, stepping closer. Release. His essence is what keeps the curse tethered. If he dies, your child will be free. The world tilted. The choice struck her like lightning, love or life, salvation or sacrifice. Her heart screamed against the logic of destiny. Seraphiel reached for her, unaware, his eyes soft and searching. Selene. What did she say? Tears burned her vision. She opened her mouth, but the words refused to come. The goddess's gaze lingered, cold and knowing. Decide before the child decides for you. Her form dissolved into mist, vanishing back into the silver horizon. The sea began to move again, gentle waves whispering secrets Selene didn't want to hear. Seraphiel knelt before her, brushing a tear from her cheek. You're shaking. What did she offer you? Selene swallowed hard. Nothing, she lied, forcing a trembling smile. Just more threats. But then she saw it, his eyes narrowing, his hand stilling midair. The faintest glint of realization crossed his divine gaze. He had heard. The wind carried his words, quiet, yet sharp as a blade. She asked you to sacrifice me, didn't she? She asked you to sacrifice me, didn't she? The words hung in the air like the toll of a funeral bell. Selene froze, the sea wind tearing at her cloak, her throat burning with the lie she could no longer sustain. The moon's reflection trembled on the waves, caught between truth and heartbreak. Seraphiel, she began, but her voice faltered. His gaze softened, sorrow shadowing the divine light in his eyes. You don't have to say it, he murmured. I heard enough. She stepped forward, trembling. It's not what you think. I would never. He placed a finger gently over her lips, silencing her. You don't need to explain what love does when it's cornered by destiny. Tears blurred her vision. Don't speak like that. Selene, he said quietly. You've given everything for me. Your name, your throne, your freedom. Let me give something back. She shook her head violently. No, there has to be another way. We can fight her together. But Seraphiel only smiled, that same serene, heartbreaking smile he'd worn when she first found him bleeding beneath the moonlight. You still don't understand, do you? The goddess's curse wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to contain me. If my essence fades, her chains will loosen, and your child will live. Selene's world tilted. No, don't you dare. Don't you dare. He cupped her face in his glowing hands, his touch burning but tender. You're stronger than you think. And this child, our child, carries more than blood. It carries promise. Seraphiel, please. But his eyes blazed with calm finality. I've already made my choice. Before she could stop him, divine fire erupted around them, swirling like a storm made of dawn itself. The ground split beneath their feet, the air vibrating with celestial energy. Selene screamed, reaching for him, but her hand met only light. His voice whispered through the flames, soft, distant, eternal. Live for what I could not. Then he was gone. The fire died. The cliffs were silent. Only the faint scent of starlight lingered, and Selene's broken cry echoing into the wind. She fell to her knees, clutching her abdomen, where a single spark of his energy still pulsed faintly, the same warmth that once flowed from his hand to hers. The following days blurred into morning. Across Elarion, people saw the light that consumed the sky and whispered that the divine healer had ascended, a sacrifice to restore balance. Temples rang their bells for him, calling him the redeemed flame. Even the king, hollow-eyed with guilt, declared a 7-day vigil. But Selene didn't mourn as they did. She didn't light candles or sing hymns. She swore vengeance. Standing before the shattered altar of the goddess, her voice cracked like thunder. You took him from me. You took everything. But I will take back the heavens themselves if I must. Lightning answered her vow. The sigil on her wrist flared blood red, the color of fury, not faith. Her unborn child stirred within her, glowing faintly beneath her skin. Then, something shifted. The air around her trembled, the sky twisting unnaturally. Selene looked up. The moon, once pure and silver, now wept streaks of crimson. The constellations dimmed one by one as if their light were being snuffed out. A deep, mournful hum rolled through creation. The sea boiled. The stars fell silent. Selene's eyes widened. No, she whispered. This isn't possible. The divine sigils carved into the temple walls began to melt like wax. The heavens themselves were unraveling. And from the heart of the red moon came a voice, weak, ragged, fading. Selene. It was the goddess. The sound was not thunder this time, but agony. The skies bled and the voice of the goddess trembled, not in wrath, but in pain. The goddess was dying. The crimson sky burned above the capital, a silent prophecy painted across the heavens. The goddess's voice, once the melody that held creation together, now cracked and splintered like glass. Each word that echoed from the bleeding moon seemed to unravel another thread of reality. Selene stood at the temple's summit, her cloak whipping in the storm. The sigils of the old faith flickered and died one by one as her power surged. Twin forces, moonlight and divine flame, spiraling through her veins. The air around her shimmered, heavy with energy that no mortal had ever dared to command. The age of one god ends tonight, she whispered, and the balance will be born anew. The priests fled before her. The sacred bells meant to summon divine protection, tolled like funeral chimes. With each step, Selene's aura blazed brighter, her hair streaming like molten silver, her eyes ignited with golden fire. Where she walked, the marble cracked and the air itself bowed. In the throne chamber of the goddess's high temple, statues wept molten tears. The altar pulsed faintly, the last heartbeat of a dying deity. Selene raised her hand, the flame coiled, ready to strike. This world deserves freedom, she declared, her voice resonating through the shattered heavens. No more chains, no more gods. She unleashed the flame. But before it struck, the ground beneath her trembled, not from power but from life. A pulse, gentle and familiar, rippled through her. She gasped and clutched her abdomen. The child within her glowed fiercely, the same divine light that once burned in the healer's eyes. Then a voice, on soft as starlight and warm as dawn, spoke within her mind. Selene, stop. She froze. That voice. It couldn't be. Seraphiel? She breathed, tears spilling down her cheeks. His spirit, faint yet unmistakable, resonated through the unborn child's light. You carry more than power, Selene. You carry me, and the balance I swore to protect. Her hand trembled. She took you from me. She destroyed us. Why should I spare her? Because if she dies, the voice said gently, everything ends. The light, The flame, the mortal world, all are threads woven through her essence. You cannot destroy her without burning the loom itself. Selene fell to her knees, torn between vengeance and love. Then what am I supposed to do? Watch her suffer as the world unravels? You were never meant to destroy her, Seraphiel whispered. You were meant to heal the rift between creation and chaos. That is why you were chosen. That is why our child exists. A silence stretched, long, aching, eternal. Then the temple shuddered again. The goddess's fading light reached for her like a wounded hand. Selene's flame dimmed, her fury softening into sorrow. All this time, she wasn't my enemy. She was dying, just like the rest of us. Seraphiel's voice flickered faintly. Then rise, my love. Become what even the gods could not. Balance itself. Selene stood, her tears evaporating in the heat of her reborn aura. The moonlight and fire within her intertwined, becoming one, a radiant silver flame that neither consumed nor destroyed, but restored. The dying stars above brightened, their light drawn to her like children returning home. As she lifted her arms, the sky responded. The red faded to gold, the heavens stitching themselves together around her will. Mortals below fell to their knees, whispering her name, Selene, the flame of dawn. Yet even as the world began to heal, one truth burned quietly in her heart. If she faltered, if her balance broke, creation itself would collapse. And deep within her womb, the child's light flickered again, serene, knowing, divine. Through the child, the healer's spirit whispered once more, urgent and haunting. Remember, Selene, to save creation, you must not only forgive the goddess, you must become her. The eclipse descended like an omen. The sun and moon locked in silent warfare, and the world drowned in a crimson twilight that blurred the line between heaven and earth. The air itself trembled, the veil between realms thinning as Selene approached the ruins of the celestial gate, where the goddess waited. Her steps echoed like thunder, her aura a tempest of moonlight and flame. Around her, the armies of Elarion and the celestial sentinels clashed, mortals and divine beings alike, bound by fear and faith. The sky roared, split by lightning shaped like runes of prophecy. The balance she had barely restored now teetered once again on the edge of collapse. The goddess stood before her, weakened, luminous, and strangely sorrowful. The once imposing being now looked almost human, her divine form cracked by the weight of eons. Her eyes, shimmering like molten gold, softened when they met Selene's. "So you've come to finish it," the goddess said, her voice echoing across both worlds. "To burn the last of what you do not understand." Selene raised her hand, divine fire spiraling from her palm. "You cursed my bloodline. You destroyed everything I was born to protect." The goddess smiled faintly, not in mockery, but in grief. "You still do not see, child of fire and moon. The curse was never punishment. It was protection." The words struck Selene like lightning. "Protection? From what?" "From yourself," the goddess whispered. "From the divine corruption that sleeps within your blood. A remnant of the first betrayal. Your ancestors took a god's power but not his restraint. It was spreading, consuming them, consuming the world. I sealed it within you so the realms would survive." The revelation tore through Selene's heart. Every humiliation, every whisper of Barren, every moment of self-loathing, all built on a lie born of mercy. You protected me by destroying me," she breathed, trembling. Tears glittered in the goddess's eyes. "I protected creation. You were never meant to bear children, Selene, because the divine within you could birth something neither mortal nor god, a being of unbound creation and destruction." Selene's breath caught. "My child." A deep, wrenching pain struck her mid-sentence. She fell to her knees as light burst from her body, the child within her responding to the dying pulse of the eclipse. The earth cracked, and rivers of molten light flowed outward, dividing armies, drowning the battlefield in brilliance. The goddess reached out, desperate. You must contain it. The balance cannot survive if it's born now. But Selene's body moved on instinct, guided by power older than both of them. No, she gasped, clutching her belly as waves of energy surged through her veins. The world needs to be reborn, not restrained. The skies exploded. The moon bled gold. The sun flared red. Time fractured. Mortals screamed as fragments of stars fell like rain. And in that moment of utter chaos, Selene gave birth, not in pain, but in transcendence. Her scream became a hymn. Her tears turned to light. The child emerged, wrapped not in mortal flesh, but in celestial fire, its cry shaking both heaven and earth. The goddess staggered back, shielding her eyes. Impossible. That light, it's... Selene lifted her child, trembling. He is the balance, she whispered. He is both of us, mortal and divine. But as she looked closer, her heart froze. The infant's eyes glowed not gold or silver, but black fire, the color of void itself. The ground split open beneath them. The eclipse pulsed violently, swallowing the stars. The child opened its mouth and spoke in a voice that was neither human nor godly. Mother, the worlds are not ready for me. Then the heavens shattered. The child's voice echoed through the broken heavens, ancient, resonant, and unbearably pure. It was not a cry of pain, but of command. Every syllable rippled through existence, rewriting the fabric of both realms. The black flame in his eyes dissolved into a radiant white, and from that brilliance waves of energy swept across the battlefield. The armies froze mid-strike. Weapons of mortals and wings of celestials disintegrated into light. The rivers of molten energy stilled, and for the first time since the dawn of creation, the world itself took a trembling breath. Selene, kneeling amidst the storm of radiance, clutched her newborn close. Her tears sparkled like molten silver, tracing lines down her soot-streaked cheeks. She felt her heartbeat synchronize with the pulse of the universe. Her child's light was cleansing everything. The corrupted sigils on the earth, the ancient stains of divine betrayal, even the remnants of the goddess's dying power, all were being undone, rewritten in purity. The goddess fell to her knees, her divine form dissolving into dust. It is finished, she whispered, her voice breaking with relief and sorrow. You have restored what we ruined. Selene turned toward her, trembling. No, he did. The child lifted a tiny hand, and from his palm bloomed a sphere of golden flame, the essence of creation itself. The light stretched skyward, piercing the veil between realms. From its heart, another figure began to emerge. Tall, radiant, cloaked in both dawn and dusk. Selene's breath caught. Seraphiel. The divine healer stepped forth, his eyes burning with gentleness once more. He smiled, no longer fractured by wrath or sorrow. You kept your promise, he said softly. You bore not a curse, but the bridge between heaven and earth. She reached out to him, her body trembling with exhaustion. You returned. Not as I was, he said, kneeling before her, but as I should have been, whole because you believed even when creation didn't. Their fingers touched, and a wave of warmth spread through the ruins. Flowers bloomed where blood had been spilled. The once dark sky brightened, the sun and moon now sharing the same horizon in perfect harmony. The celestial gate reformed, not as a weapon, but as a bridge of light, connecting mortal and divine realms without walls or thrones. Selene gazed down at the child in her arms. His golden hair shimmered faintly, his eyes reflecting both her calm and Seraphiel's eternity. So this is what it means to be whole, she whispered. Her voice, weary yet peaceful, drifted upward like prayer. Seraphiel placed a gentle hand over hers. It means nothing was ever broken, only waiting to be reborn. The wind carried their words across the realm. The armies laid down their arms. The heavens, once fractured, sang a hymn older than memory, and for the first time in countless ages, there was peace. But as dawn settled over the new world, a faint disturbance rippled through the light, unseen, unheard, unnoticed. Far beyond the veil, where creation's first sparks were born, a lone shadow stirred. Its form was vast, ancient, and chained beneath layers of forgotten stars. Two eyes opened, cold, endless, and knowing. A voice whispered through the void, curling around the newborn dawn like smoke. "Balance," it murmured, dark amusement in its tone. "Balance never lasts forever." The chains rattled once faintly, then silence. Back in the waking world, Selene smiled faintly in her sleep, unaware that somewhere, far beyond her reach, the cycle she had just completed had already begun again. The end,